Another therapy. I'm sorry. I mean, Patriots game recap / preview. I had to bring somebody on who brings me to my happy place. Brings the best out
Look
of
at
me
that.
because the tape today was rough. So I enlisted the help of my good buddy Mike Kadlick. Mike, how are you doing, bud? We've had some time to sleep on this, to ruminate, take a closer look at what happened. Did you see anything good, or was it as bad as we thought?
No, I didn't say anything good. You're right. It is as bad as we thought. This team, okay, the one thing I guess we can take away, well, first of all, Taylor, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I think we all need a little bit of a day after, 24 hours, sit on it type of vent sesh. So this is perfect. Monday night, mailbag, let's get after it. Having said that, looking at, watching some of the game over again today, sort of taking a deeper dive into it. I mean, nothing really made me feel any better about this team. Like the same things I saw last night were basically just, I watched, you watch it over, you take a look and you see it, and it all kind of just made more sense. Like the good things, like Kendrick Bourne was really good. You see that again today on the film. He looks really good. Mac Jones, not great. They simplified a little bit in the second half, and he sort of gets them down there and is able to bring in a couple touchdown drives. But at the end of the day, Bill Belichick said it this morning. All the players sort of said it on the radio today. They're close, but they're not close enough. They're not executing properly. They're not they're not stringing together drives. And when you don't score points, your defense isn't going to be able to, make as many stops because they're not as motivated. And it's all this, it's a spiral. It's a decline. Everything builds on each other. And now they sit at 1-5. So things are still looking like they're going to get uglier before they get better here.
Yeah, there's a lot of places we could go to right now for what's going wrong, all this, but we have a structured format in the form of your fantastic questions. So let's get this started. I'll take this one first, as you are the guest. I'll be polite this time around. Amit, what have we got? Help me structure my chaotic
Amit's probably back there just cooking up questions he wants us to hear.
Honestly, I think these are just going to be fake names on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
All right. So with money in free agency next year to spend and seemingly a high pick, who are the building blocks going forward we absolutely shouldn't trade before the deadline? Now, I'm actually going to pull up. Oh, look at that. A little bit of I'm actually not going to show you the clips on the side. Those are awful. But we're going to take a look at the actual roster for this question and see, who are the building blocks? Who are some people that we'd actually like to see on the team long term? Now, I'll start on the offensive side of the ball. One tough one is Kendrick Bourne, because while I am kind of nervous to see what this passing game would look like without him in it at all, I think maybe he's got some value. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to get you more than like a 4th round pick. And is that really worth losing one of the core pieces of your passing attack? I'm not sure. Devontae Parker, I would sell on immediately, but I don't know who's going to be a buyer. I mean, I'm scared. I'm scared of that dude, to be totally honest. Like, I don't like criticizing him out loud. But at the same time,
I'm with you. If you can get anything, back for that contract you signed him to this offseason, you take it, I think.
Yeah, I don't think you are. That's just wishful thinking. Trent Brown, I feel like, is somebody who's going to come up in talks, but I think he's one of the answers on your team. Like, does he make a couple mistakes a game? Are there 1 or 2 snaps every game that you could point to and you're like, yeah, he totally whipped? Absolutely. But more often than not, he's one of the few people on the offense doing his job and one of the few people who's able to do it at a high level. So honestly, I hope Trent Brown sticks. Also, I don't think Mac Jones would make it through the season from a health perspective if he were gone. Let's keep looking here. We've got Hunter Henry is an interesting one. One, I do think that he's another guy you'd like to build around just because he's so steady. Also, how much is he going to affect captain? One of the few guys that Mac has a lot of chemistry with. But at the same time, one, is he even going to get you that much value? Because when you listen to other people talk about Hunter Henry, it's one thing when you watch the Patriots and there's so much bad that you're like, Hunter Henry making a crazy catch is amazing, despite the fact he's not getting a ton of separation. But do you even think that he would fetch much on the trade market?
I wonder. I mean, again, you look at leadership quality is one thing that everybody likes about him here, but I don't think another team really cares to bring that in. He's a below average blocker. I'd say he's a little bit of an above average pass catcher, but unless there's like a really tight end needy team that is looking to, get over the edge and get over the hump, if you will, to try and, win a Super Bowl, then maybe. But you look at the top teams in the NFL right now, it's the Chiefs who have Travis Kelce. It's the Eagles who have Dallas Goedert. It's the 49ers who have George Kittle. So like, maybe like, I don't know, a Cincinnati, but Cincinnati has enough weapons for Joe Burrow anyway. So I don't really know what team's going to go and buy on Hunter Henry for the next 4 months.
All right. So offensively, our options are probably Kendrick Bourne, Trent Brown, and who else?
So the Kendrick Bourne thing is interesting to me because you're right. I think he still adds value this season. I think he's, as a pure pass catcher, as a wide receiver, rather, he's their top guy that has chemistry with Mac Jones right now. And he is somebody who, has a good attitude. He comes in every day. He works hard. Even yesterday, you're 1-4 going on 1-5, and Zeke gets in the end zone and KB's right there doing the eat it up thing with Zeke. Like, he's a team guy. He likes it. He likes football and he likes the team. But I think he would get you some value on the open market because or on the trade market rather, because he's a high end player. He showed it yesterday with 10 catches for almost 90 yards. I would like to build around him if he wants to stay and sign another contract. But that's sort of the game you have to play here because I don't know if they're going to, have those talks with him before they send him off or anything like that. But if he wants to stick around, then yeah, you keep him. But if he's going to walk in free agency anyway next year, then I kind of think you have to sell him off because you're not really playing for much at this point. And that's kind of the hard part with all of these things too and we'll get to the defense, some of those guys that you might be able to sell off. But like, there's the talks and there's the rumors and there's the idea that Bill Belichick is no longer going to be here next year. Mm-hmm. But that's the guy that's going to be making the decisions right now at the deadline on who to buy or who to sell or who to build around. So like, if you do it now and then it comes around and in January when free agency hits in March, it's a whole new regime, then all the ideas might change. So this is definitely an interesting deadline as a whole for this team because you might have that changing of the guards. So we'll see how it plays out. But if a guy like Kendrick Bourne wants to be here long term, I would rather see them extend him than trade him.
And then I think we could just agree Mike Kadlick was not an option because he's hurt. Nobody's going to trade for him right now.
I agree.
Defense.
I also think that's another guy who, we talked about it, I think, before he even came in. But if he was going to come in and play right tackle and play well, just pay him like a right tackle. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Like you said, he's hurt right now. He was really an emergency player for them. I don't really think anybody's going to trade for him right now. I don't.
Yeah, and I still think that if the roster is built well, Mike Kadlick never should have to play tackle for you.
That's a good point as well. You're right.
All right, so let's look at defense because I think they've got more valuable trade chips on defense. One who is at the top of my list is Josh Uche because I think that the loss of Matt Judon has created a situation where I think Josh Uche, he's actually been pretty quiet this season. He has his flashes every game where you're like, right, that's the guy.
Yeah, but that's 55. We know that guy.
Exactly. But that efficiency that he had last season, that was just through the roof. Obviously, statistically, these things you tend to regress. Just for him, it happens to be in a contract year. I think that right now, you've seen without Judon, he's only had, I think, one pressure in each of the last 2 games. So he's not making the impact you want him to have. And with all this attention on him, maybe he really is just a second kind of rusher.
Right.
Now, maybe you go send him to a team that you said has playoff aspirations or something like that, who just needs one more piece like a Josh Uche, who is not the most scary person on the defensive line and can just eat for a pretty good deal and then maybe skyrocket his value. So I think he's probably the one guy on this roster who I think could get you maybe second round type pick at the very best. I don't want to get too crazy here, but I think he's your most valuable piece.
The other guy, my most valuable piece is Kyle Duggar. I don't want them to trade him. I think,
He's
that's a guy who I want to be a building block. I don't want to trade him, but if you're talking pure value on the trade market and a guy that's in a contract here, I think it's Kyle Duggar. But this is one of those guys where it feels like he is a Belichick guy, a second round pick, Lenore Ryan, diamond in the rough type draft pick that they made, and they're gonna want to try and keep around and continue to prove that Belichick can in fact still draft. So I think they should build around that guy, and I think that's a guy you need to re-sign.
Last one before we move on, because we could do this for an entire show. This is a lot of fun. Maybe we will.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, trade deadline special.
All right, what about Christian Barmore?
He's young. He's still got some time left. I guess I don't hate the idea if you're really going to go into full sell mode and, if you can get something decent for him, but it's obviously going to depend on, what you get back. I don't want to give up on a guy like that just yet because that was a guy too you traded up for in the second round. You moved up to the 36th overall pick. You put in some capital for, and I still think he has a lot of potential. So a guy that's still on a deal that's a young building block, I think you keep him around if you can.
I agree. I don't want to get rid of him. He just seems like one of the other guys where if he's on the market, maybe you can get something for him. But I agree. I really like him, and I want him to stick around as a building block. Real quick, pay the bills. Amit, please and thank you. Send it over to our friends at Fanduel.
To action this NFL season with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
I love the FanDuel beat. All right, so Ahmed says this is the best question of them all. I have a feeling he's going to be biased, but let's see what the next question
let's see what we got
in
here.
the bag. I'm excited. Let's see. Shows the secret. Tank or tank? Oh, sultry. All right,
put it in. It's Producer Ahmed is the name too.
Of course. Yeah, you're gonna take this one
first.
I went first last time. Yes, please.
So I actually wrote about this a little bit today on not WEEI.com, but actually CLNSmedia.com, where I'm also contributing some gambling and betting content. And so talking about where this team is at and looking at the betting odds. The Patriots currently have like the 5th most likely odds to have the worst overall record in the NFL this season. That's according to odds makers. That's not statistical. That's, again,
odds are probably higher than that.
Right. And so, I mean, you look at it, and when that question and that sort of that prompt comes up, you obviously start to think, are they going to tank? Or are they going to start to the way I wrote about it is that you're never going to see not only a Bill Belichick team, but, a true, supposedly highly run NFL football team actively tank to lose games. So like the word tank is kind of tough to, put into context. Like, obviously, you look at the trade deadline. If they start selling off pieces and looking toward the future, if you want to call that tanking, then so be it. I think that's more so rebuilding. Same with exactly. And same with, if you do benchmark and go to a Bailey Zappi or Malik Cunningham or Will Grier, again, that's not necessarily tanking in my opinion. That's just seeing what you have on your roster. And same with giving some other younger guys, opportunities. Like if Juju Smith-Schuster continues to struggle and he, comes up lame on a knee and you put him on IR, you give a guy like Kayshon Boutte more reps. You give guys like Demario Douglas when he comes back more reps. So I think that's what's going to start to happen down the stretch if they continue on to 1-7, like we think they probably will, is you might see a new quarterback. You might see less reps for veterans. You might see some veterans shipped out, things like that. And so, again, that's not necessarily tank in my opinion. That's more so just looking to see what you have on your roster and doing sort of a gut/rebuild. So I think that's the direction we're going to go. But as far as tanking and if they're in week 17 and it's the Patriots and the Carolina Panthers who are vying for the #1 pick, you're not going to see them fumble or, you know what I mean? That's just not going to happen. And that's not really what happens in any sport, but you might see them start to try and rebuild this thing here.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. The closest thing you're going to get to a tank is like a calculated tank, where it really is just a rebuild where you're assessing what you've got. Now, the Patriots are in a position where they can do that, where you just play all your young receivers. You have Kendrick Bourne as the backbone, but everybody else there is a young talent. And honestly, they were already there yesterday, where Devontae Parker's on the field a lot, but you also have Jalen Reagor. And it's like, all right, those two guys are both there, but they're not really doing a whole lot for you. It really is Kendrick Bourne and whoever else is on the field at the same time. And then the young guys, you also had Antonio Mafia and City So inside. So really, they're already kind of doing it.
That's the thing I'm thinking too. That's the other point is on the inside too, those two guards.
Right. And then only thing you're taking out is Mac Jones. But I think people also need to understand that if you play all these young players, you think this offense is bad, this is still a somewhat competent NFL offense. You're talking about if you have 2 to 3 rookies, or even like a Tyquan Thornton who hasn't seen a lot of football in Bill O'Brien's system, especially on the field, then that's going to go from hard to watch to impossible to watch because there's the lack of chemistry. The detail that's been an issue all season that Juju Smith-Schuster is having trouble with, that's not going to get a lot easier when players don't have game experience. You saw that with Malik Cunningham yesterday. There were reads that he seemed to miss, although, like there was the handoff where he gave it to Ramondre, even though the guy bit down. It could have also been there's not a lot of reps there, so maybe Ramondre went downhill too fast because he doesn't have a lot of reps. Like that could cause a cataclysmic, I'm using a lot of good words, and I'm like getting myself in a tizzy here, but you see what I'm saying, that like when one of those pieces is out of whack, it could just turn into a catastrophic thing for your offense. So I think that they're being forced in the position of almost kind of tanking because you're putting all your young guys in the fire.
Right.
But I mean, best case scenario, and you also don't want to damage them. Like what's going on with Mac Jones, you put him in such a difficult position over the course of years that now it's completely gotten into his head. It's in his muscle memory, and he can't really overcome it because nothing else around him is really helping him out. If you do that to your young receivers, are you helping them by giving them experience? It's like with young quarterbacks. Are you going to put them in there and damage their confidence? Or are they going to maybe build it because they have that toughness and they're being developed well? And I also don't frankly trust their ability to develop young talent on offense either. So, like, I'm sorry, but
no, I'm with you.
Really kind of very close to doing that.
And to the point with the offensive line, and again, I don't like to use, not that I don't like to use the word tank, but I think that's kind of, putting it in a different light than what it is. But, if the Patriots were 4-1 instead of 1-4 going into yesterday, I have a feeling Mike Onwenu would probably play. Like he probably would have stuck it out and they probably would have put him out there. But the fact that they're not, and it's crazy to think that they're already making business decisions, in October 16th, excuse me. But that's kind of the reality of the situation. And so you wonder I wonder what they'll do with Mike Onwenu in general here, because if he's not going out there and trotting out there to, try and I don't want to speculate on his injury either, but if it's the same thing and he's a little bit banged up and isn't getting out there because they're 1-4 and they're like, forget it. You wonder where this thing's going to go and how this thing unravels.
Absolutely. I'm going to address a comment real quick. Where is it now? My thing froze up. Where it's not how football works. Kyle, first, my name is Taylor. Playing young guys, what other teams do. Yes, that's true. But it really helps when you have a developmental program in place. Like what the Patriots have on defense last year. You saw a ton of young players play on defense because, sometimes that is just how football works. The Chiefs are doing a great job of that. But the Chiefs and the Patriots defensively have the coaching staffs where those things work because they're putting these players, they're not putting a ton on their plate. They're, as much as they can, simplifying it and making their jobs relatively easy. That's not what you're talking about on offense, especially when there's so much more. It's not like that being a defensive back doesn't involve chemistry. You have to know where your help is. There's plenty that goes into that as well. But with offense, there's so many little details and chemistry in terms of the quarterback and receiver being able to even connect because they understand each other. So, and Tyquan Thornton can't be worse than Juju.
But there's to your point, like there's a big difference between last year putting in a Jack Jones earlier than you might have wanted to on a defense that is naturally pretty good at, developing and teaching cornerbacks. Like you look at, the JC Jacksons and the Malcolm Butlers of the world, and like people like that who have come in here, been able to be plug and play pretty well because they're good at that. That's different than taking Kayshon Boutte and just plugging him in yesterday because he's young and he might as well be better. Like that's just not how it works. There's a lot more to it than just plug and play.
Yeah. And I just want to address the Juju and Tyquan thing because it's bugging me. I don't even necessarily disagree because Juju's literally not done anything. Like I'm not even saying relative to that. I'm saying, like you said, a Boutte or a Cunningham where it's like you think it's bad now. Wait till you get guys in there who don't have reps. Reps are very important. Exactly. All right, Amma, let's move on. But yeah, it's a good question, but good job, producer Amit. Let's see. How much blame should be placed on Adrian Clem for the O-line play and on Bill for hiring him? This is one where I wasn't really sure yet. And I think I was pretty close, but I think we've just reached a boiling point where Adrian Clem has had a tough hand dealt to him because he had to develop a lot of young mid-round offensive linemen very quickly. And two of the pillars of the offensive line have been hurt. You also have like a glaring spot at right tackle, which was seen as initially his biggest hurdle that he had to overcome. And it's always hard to judge exactly how a coach is doing. Not everybody's Skarneckian. Not everybody can take the undrafted guy that you signed last week, plug him in, and he like gives up a couple pressures, but you're like, oh my God, that was incredible. I didn't even expect that. Like, not everyone is Scar. So it's tough to say, okay, is he not doing his job well? Because these rookies are, I even thought Mafi was doing pretty well for a couple weeks, and then he's just been regressing a little bit. But it's also that, Trent Brown is still kind of making the mistakes. David Andrews is hurt, so there's that. But the way they're picking up line games, like I get these guys are young, but just like in terms of depth, in terms of having the awareness that they're even going to happen, things like that are happening far too often. And then you look at the run game where there are definitely some positives, but there's times where guys are given angles that just don't make sense. Where you got Antonio Mafi trying to outrun like Pete Warner, which is a complete mismatch. Like that's not going to happen. You're not using your personnel the right way. So in terms of the plan, sometimes the positions guys are being put in, their execution, like it gets down to a point where I don't care that you're young. Just like you have to not repeat mistakes. And Belichick said that was one of Mafi's strengths, but I think that we're starting to see that with a lot of repeat mistakes, specifically on those stunts and those things where he tries to block one person, somebody else comes in his area, and he's not even close to being able to pick it up. It's affecting other people. And then you look at the penalties, where's the discipline there? Because you can control penalties. You can control false starts and things like that. And the offensive line is getting penalized every week. And I think you can blame Belichick because he was one of Belichick's guys. And he was familiar with the Oregon program. He hired Adrian Clem. Adrian Clem used to play for the Patriots. It was very brief, but there's that connection. The offensive line has not only not had great talent, but also the product on the field has been really bad. And at some point, it's the coach's fault. I understand you have a tough hand, but it's been abysmal.
Right. I'm with you. I mean, this whole thing, this whole disaster, the reason we sit here on October 16th talking about a 1-5 football team, I truly think it starts and ends with the offensive line. And it goes back to last year as well. And I think it's the players. Like ultimately the players that they've put out there aren't good enough, and they have dealt with injury, but you're still working with a Vidarian Lowe and two rookies at tackle and the two guards. And so I don't think the play on the field is Adrian Clem's fault, but I do think it's Bill Belichick's fault for bringing those guys in and having those guys be the second tier that they've had to rely on to play at set offensive line positions and not having a better option at right tackle in week 6. And so ultimately it's on the players, but it's also on the GM for bringing those guys in. As far as Adrian Clem specifically, I do agree with your point on the fact that he can fix false starts and he can fix holdings and he can fix, illegal formations along the offensive line or too many men downfield, like things like that. The mental side of it, that's on the offensive line coach. And I don't care if you're, call it Orlando Brown Jr. or if you're Calvin Anderson, like you can still coach a guy up enough to be smart on the football field. You're in the NFL for a reason. You should not be making as many mental mistakes as the Patriots are making. But as far as the skill sets of these guys, technically Vidarian Lowe getting smoked on the outside by Max Crosby for a safety is Vidarian Lowe's fault. Like he's not good enough, but it's the fact that he's being put in that position at all. That's Bill Belichick's fault. So everyone gets a piece of the blame pie, in my opinion. And that's the reason that Max sped up. That's the reason that Mac and his wide receivers aren't on the same page. That's the reason Mac's throwing interceptions when he's rolling out instead of throwing the football away. Like it all comes back to that offensive line. And at the end of the day, it's Bill Belichick's fault because he's the general manager of this team.
That's what he says. It all falls down to me. I'm the head coach. And at the same time, when a product is this bad, it never is one or two people. It's blame pie all around because no one's doing anything to the level that they need to be doing it.
No one's doing anything. Just cut that, Amit, and make that the promo. No one's doing anything.
All right, what else we got, Amit? Maybe one more from the mailbag, and then we'll start taking some questions that you've got live. What are the options they have when they have Parker, who has clearly lost something out there and not feeding Bourne or trying to get the younger guys going? You want to take this one?
Oh, man. Yeah. This is another one that comes down to Bill Belichick. Like their options are slim. They don't have many options at wide receiver or tight end. And those guys this offseason, rightfully so, got a little bitter. Rightfully so at the time, got a little bitter at the stink, stank, stunk thing that our good friend Mike Giardi said. And I get it. I mean, it's our job to, analyze and critique these guys and, to whatever happened, right? But I mean, they haven't been good. Like it seemed like they took it to heart and then they were going to use it as motivation to, play harder, play faster, play better. And they haven't lived up to the bargain. Kendrick Bourne has a little bit, but again, Devontae Parker's drop yesterday, inexcusable in my opinion. There's nothing to, there's no reason why he shouldn't have not only caught up, but taken accountability after the game as well. Again, Kendrick's been pretty good. Tyquan's been hurt. Demario Douglas, I think, has been solid, but could be better as far as like a route runner and understanding spacing in the field and things like that. And we'll see what kind of impact he makes when he comes back from his concussion this week. But no, Parker, you're right, has clearly lost a little something out there. I don't know why they haven't turned to Kayshon Boutte yet, at least like yesterday. I don't know. In my opinion, I'd rather see what you have in Kayshon Boutte than see what you have in Jalen Reagor. But as far as like the younger guys, getting them going too, I sort of mentioned it in the tank question. Guys like Boutte, guys like Demario Douglas, guys like Cunningham. Like I know Cunningham is maybe turning more into a gadget guy than a true wide receiver, but those are your options, and you might as well see what you have in them, because not that the other guys are not that much better than them. Like I would take a Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker over those guys, I think, but you might as well give them a shot because those guys aren't really performing either.
Yeah, and you mentioned where we were in the summer versus where we are now.
Yeah.
I do think like the inbreakers to Bourne and things like that, that was there in the summer. Correct. Juju, I think we started to see in the summer, like, okay, we need to temper our expectations because he's only really catching short passes. He showed up in the red zone. They haven't really been in the red zone enough for that to really be fulfilled.
Right.
But then Devontae Parker is the biggest one, where losing your vertical threat outside, like that was a massive part of the whole, like, how is this offense going to go? Because,
right.
If you have that element, then these one-on-one matchups are completely different. Like, it helps your pass rush. And then if they actually used RPOs, then you'd be more inclined to do so because you can either hit fades or slants because you're so confident in this guy on the back. Like, there's so many things that this could have opened up, and so many ways the offense could have been easier. But yeah, he's been a massive disappointment. And I really did not like his comment about I didn't like that he was mentioned it was on his fingertips. Or it sounded like he was trying to kind of take blame off of himself. Where it's like, dude, even if that's off your fingertips, like, don't say that.
Correct.
If that touched your hands, like, unless you were losing feeling because of the intensity of the moment, like, man, you just got to eat that. And
I'm with you.
He kind of goes away. Like, that was from a veteran too. Like,
yeah.
And then when you look at the effort, like, his route running has been something that I did not really want to put under too much of a microscope, because as a veteran player, sometimes you give those guys the benefit of the doubt. Like, yeah, sometimes you don't want to go 100% because the ball's not coming your way.
Right.
Like, when you're 30 years old to a degree, I'm just like, hey, sometimes you live with it. Yeah. But now when it's starting to happen on the field, where Max targeting you on a slant and you act like you just have all the time in the world, like it's an option route where you're a second read, like, it's starting to actually hurt the team. And now on the one thing that this team asks you to do, you get behind the defense. It's like, hey, maybe we got something again with Parker, and maybe we eat crow. And, he just needed to get his feet back under him, and he has a great performance, and all of this is for naught. But that's not what the past has been in the past few weeks. That's not the Devontae Parker we've seen. And it's just been so disappointing. So I think defeating Kendrick Bourne, I think they're starting to come around to that. Mm-hmm. It's weird that I knew that once Thornton was in the game, I'm like, they're not going to throw to him very often. Like, O'Brien clearly doesn't trust him. So Thornton doesn't play in the slot a lot because he's kind of a smaller guy. It's got to be Kendrick Bourne. And all those underneath targets that you usually see for Juju for whatever reason, or for DeMario sometimes, like, those were being funneled to him out of desperation. And finally, it's like, yes, this is why people have been saying, like, it doesn't always have to be downfield. Just get him involved, because he's got more juice and more tackle breaking ability than anybody else. So I think that that's close. And with the younger guys, again, it's going back to the tank argument, where I don't think that you want Malik Cunningham playing 20 snaps a game. I don't think you want Kayshon Boutte playing 20 snaps a game. If Kayshon Boutte's not on the field and Demario Douglas is, I think that's telling you what's happening on the practice field.
Yeah,
like, if Kayshon Boutte were earning reps, he'd be getting more reps. Like, it's not like he's buried on some depth chart.
Right. Demario earned them. He's out there. If Boutte was earning them, he would be out there 100%.
And we saw it in training camp. Demario was out there immediately. Kayshon took a while. Then he popped in, and then it was inconsistent. Like, it's a difference between, okay, this is hard to watch to it being Mac doesn't trust Juju, who he's been working with since summer. What do you think is going to happen when it's Kayshon Boutte and and Malik Cunningham running option routes, running slants, where maybe he puts one more step than he's supposed to at the top of the route, and then it's an interception or what have you, Right. So I do want to get the young guys involved, and the stink thing has come to fruition, although things have changed since then. I think. Whatever. I'm not going to get
one thing I quickly want to add to the Parker thing in the comments after the game, and it's hard, and I don't want to continue to sit here and pile on the guy. Like he made a mistake. Yep. He had to talk about it and what have you. But I agree that that's something where you should eat it after the game, no matter what happens. Say that's my fault. I have to catch that ball. Repeat that until you're blue in the face. Don't start asking for next questions and stuff. But the other thing with that is, this is a guy who Belichick just gave a 3-year extension to. This is a guy.
That's what makes it way worse.
Yeah, this is supposed to be a Belichick guy who loves the team and wants to be a part of winning here. And those are the reports that came out. Ian Rappaport tweeted he wants to bring another Super Bowl to the Patriots. Like, that's supposed to be the guy who is supposed to sit in the locker room and eat what happened and say, that was my fault and I need to be better for the team. And he didn't do that, so that part of it, and the fact that he was supposedly the Belichick guy who got the 3-year extension, that part rubbed me the wrong way a little bit too.
Yeah, and you're so right. Like it's one play, and it's so easy in a game like that to make it all about him in that situation. It's more that it's everything, where it's the extension. It's what he said afterwards, and the fact that there hasn't been a level of production where you're like, all right, like with Kendrick Bourne, I think like he had to drop earlier in the season, but it's like you can't really point to Kendrick Bourne and say like he's doing it again. Like this is an issue. It's like at some point you give him grace. Sure. But Devontae Parker hasn't really earned that grace, especially with the lack of effort. Because when you lack effort, then it's like when you have a gotta have it play fall through your hands, all of these things combine and create a much uglier picture. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I'm hungry. And now I just can't. I keep thinking factor. I can't wait to get some in my belly. So you know what? Let's pay the bills. Thank you, pal. And let's send it over to our friends at Factor. With the NFL season officially underway, it's been pretty tough finding time to cook for myself and my family, and even tougher making meals that both taste good and don't destroy my body. Thankfully, our friends at Factor provide ready-to-eat meal kits that are not only chef-prepared, but also dietitian-approved and delivered straight to your door. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know any chefs or any dietitians, so this has been a huge help for me on a daily basis. These save me a ton of money. I don't have to go to the grocery store to get ingredients, and most importantly, they taste fantastic. Additionally, they save me a desperate trip to the nearest fast food place when I have completely forgotten to cook myself dinner. Head to factormeals.com/PatsDaily50 and use code PatsDaily50 to get 50% off. That's code PatsDaily50 at factormeals.com/PatsDaily50 to get 50% off. All right, now we're going to take a couple live mailbag questions before we head out of here. First, what's really the biggest need on O? Right tackle, wide receiver, or quarterback? I could take this one first.
Yeah, you can start.
It's hard to just say right tackle when guard is also such a big issue. Mm-hmm. But I say right tackle with the idea that like the priority has to be the offensive line. Like, look at the Eagles. The Eagles and the 49ers, like two of the best, most well-built teams in the NFL. The strength is in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And yes, the explosive talent helps a lot. But at the end of the day, if you want to be a well-balanced team, you have to have a good offensive line. There's absolutely no way around that. Beyond that, I would say if I had to prioritize, I would say receiver right now, just because I think this team, if you stabilize the offensive line and give them like one T. Higgins type that can dictate matchups, I think that takes so much pressure off. And regardless of who's at quarterback, I think that makes you a more competitive team. And with that said, my dream offseason is you pay a right tackle or you pay a receiver and then you draft a quarterback. So you give them the help that Mac Jones never got, and then you start looking at quarterback. And it's hard when there's like some really good prospects and next year's class isn't good. Like quarterback has to be a priority at some point.
Right.
but you got to give them help. Like, that's what this whole Mac Jones thing has been about. And having a Caleb Williams helps, but it also helps when Caleb Williams doesn't have to run for his life. It can actually mature behind a pocket that doesn't give him the yips.
Right. To answer the question in, a couple different ways, you look at this year and what I guess the biggest need for like this team in 2023 is right tackle. At the end of the day, I've been a Mac Jones guy. Moving forward, I think, I think he got screwed from the jump. I think they didn't put enough around him in year 3. We're now here and we're at 1-5, and he looks like, he's not a good caliber NFL quarterback. And so heading into the offseason, I think the biggest need is quarterback, because I think Mac Jones is, in my opinion, irretrievably broken. I think the timing, the footwork, the confidence, I think all of it's shot. And I think it's been a compounding thing over the last 3 years where it's going to be nearly impossible for any, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, head coach to come in and fix it. At least not relatively soon. I think it's going to take a lot for him to get, his confidence back and his mojo back as an NFL quarterback. So I think this offseason, I think quarterback's number one because it's the most important position in football. However, I'm starting to come around the idea that offensive line is in fact the most important position in football, because you mentioned Caleb Williams. I watched Caleb Williams on Saturday night, and he looked a lot like Mac Jones back there. He didn't have the protection.
Literally.
He was running around like a chicken with his head cut off. He was trying to make plays with his hair on fire, and he threw 3 interceptions, and they got beat by Notre Dame because they couldn't handle the rush, and that threw the entire USC offense off. That's with Lincoln Riley calling players. That's with the best player in college football as your quarterback. So at the end of the day, you need to keep those guys protected, and you need to give them time with their wide receivers to try and get that chemistry going and try and get, the whole operation going. So it comes down to the offensive line. So long story short, this year, the biggest need is still and was right tackle, because you're not going to get a better quarterback in here this year. Moving forward, you need to find a quarterback of your future. And this time, whether it's Belichick, whether it's Matt Rowe, whether it's Gerard Mayo, whether it's a new GM, new head coach, whoever that quarterback is, you need to surround him with a competent offensive line and talent around him. And that's sort of where my head goes.
Absolutely. I keep having this fantasy in my head that Mac Jones could be a good bridge quarterback, but truly, man, I don't know if he's going to make it out of this season with his head on his shoulders.
That's the part that's too bad is and I do sometimes, receive a lot of flack for being a Mac Jones guy, but you look at him coming out of college and you look at what he did in year 1 and you look at the sort of, some of the flashes this year, last year, and obviously, his I keep wanting to say freshman year, his rookie year, he was there and he could play quarterback in this league, and Bill said it himself too, but it's just, it's too far gone at this point. He's happy feet. He's taking sacks when he shouldn't. He's,
no plan.
He's throwing the ball away, or he's not throwing the ball away when he should. That play to Hunter Henry yesterday, after everything you've been through the last 5 weeks, the interceptions, the costly turnovers, you break the pocket. Yeah, it's making you cringe. And I was watching it too. And he broke the pocket on that interception. And I was yelling at my TV, just throw it away. Just throw it away. And again, he just tries to do too much. Those are the types of mental lapses that are really hard to coach out of someone once they're baked in after this long. And so that's why I say
we're seeing it. We're literally seeing how hard it is to get it out. He's doing it oh my God. I still can't. And the worst part is he didn't even have to throw it away. Hunter Henry was wide open.
Yeah.
Literally just take 2 seconds, plant your feet and throw.
Yeah.
He had time.
Right.
And that's the really scary part is when I'm looking at him and I'm saying, okay, he's not, what do you think about it? He doesn't go back in your brain and think about when the last time is that Mac Jones threw the ball away. We actually got the answer. And I'm pretty sure it was the throw that sailed to Mike Gesicki, because Mike Gesicki just lost so badly on an out route where I don't even know why that was the matchup you want. But, everybody gets got in the NFL. That just is a weird one to give to Mike Gesicki. But it's not about him. It's about Mac Jones. And so many times on film where you see the first read is taken away, but because he's either anticipating the rush or seeing the rush, it's so hard. And this is why like you say, it's hard for it all to be on Mac because when you're constantly dealing with people at your feet, that is not an easy place to live. But like even Brady, you saw sometimes he'd make a throw and he'd kind of dip away because, like, yeah, you're a pocket quarterback. You're not trying to get hurt. That's common sense. But there's also times where it's like, I know what I have to do on this play. I might get bumped or something. There are times where Mac is literally just, he does not want to get touched. Right. And that's a scary thing to see from a quarterback when it's not even, no, I'm not trying to take a big hit or I'm just trying to, like, minimize the damage. It's fully, this guy might like just kind of like, at the end of the play kind of bump into me, and he doesn't want that. And that's what really is like, okay, he needs help around him, but like we already said, I think it's well past time.
It feels lost.
It can't be him. Yeah.
Right.
Best case scenario, I think he's your bridge until your new quarterback gets his feet under him and can play. But all right, Amit, one more, please. We got Monday Night Football coming up.
Yeah, we do.
Is there any scenario in which Belichick would step down this year, or does anybody really know his contract status? That's you, buddy.
I'm not aware of his contract status. I know he makes a lot of money. I don't know if it's year to year. I don't know if it's a locked in, baked in type of situation. That is, that whole thing is pretty lock and key down at One Patriot Place as to what that contract actually looks like. As far as stepping down, I think if they're going to move on from Belichick this season, it's going to be mutual. It's going to be a step down. I don't think they can fire him. And I've gone back and forth on this over, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, as they've, continued to get blown out and lose. It's like, when is enough going to be enough for Robert? Or when is enough going to be enough for Robert Kraft? And I thought that there was a chance that things could have blew up last week after the loss to the Saints, and Robert would just be so pissed, and he storms downstairs and he yanks him out. And like, again, this week too, I'm like, oh, if they get blown out again, you could really see this hitting the fan. But at the end of the day, there's not enough infrastructure outside of Bill Belichick in Foxborough for Robert Kraft to fire Bill Belichick in season. Because if you fire Bill's hands are on everything in Foxborough. He runs the scouting department. He runs the front office. He runs every single coaching, unit. He runs PR, realistically. He runs social media. They have their hands in, the food that's in the freaking cafeteria every day. Like, everything in Foxborough is run by either Bill Belichick or people close to him in his circle. So if you fire him and you start pissing people off, you're not going to have a lot of people around you, to like, if you fire Bill and everyone's pissed off and everyone else leaves with him, who are you going to bring in to run the operation for the next 4 months? Like, it just can't happen that way. And that's the problem. Like, is Matt Rowe a Belichick guy, or is he going to stick around and, piece together the front office? And at that point, is he going to even want to, like, if he's not guaranteed the job next season? Is he just going to be a lame duck front office executive? Same with the assistant coaches. Like, is Steve going to stick around? Is Brian going to stick around? Are you going to have to are you going to have an offensive coach? Like, is Bill O'Brien going to stay here if he's not guaranteed a position? Is Gerard Mayo going to stay? So, like, there's this huge domino effect that, since it's so, like, I guess special here is the right way to say it with Bill Belichick, it's unprecedented. It's hard to just fire the guy and, have an ounce of like stability moving forward the rest of the season. So long story short, if Bill does in fact leave this year, it's going to have to be mutual, and he's going to have to step down and sit there and say, I've done the best thing for the team. That's been my philosophy for the last 25 years. I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm going to step down. Otherwise, I can't see him getting fired at this point, and only for that reason. Not that he doesn't deserve it, but the fact that the lighthouse might fall down if Bill Belichick is no longer here. Like, it's that he's that entrenched in everything at Patriot Place.
I mean, you put it perfectly.
Yeah, that's kind of,
like, you're pulling out the tree by the root, and you have no idea what that domino effect is going to be. And that's what makes it so hard for them to be this bad this early. There are so many questions that you have, but I think it would take like several more blowouts, because I understand it is virtually impossible for Belichick to get fired or walk away, whatever you want to call it, in season. Because if he walks away, like whatever it is, if it's in season, at some point the understanding is that Robert Kraft has had enough. Right, because I highly doubt that Belichick is going to be this mad at Belichick fire, or to that point more than Robert Kraft is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But is it going to take like several more blowouts? Is Robert Kraft going to put up with that? It's just like, how much deeper are you going to dig this hole that affects your legacy? Like, this can get bad. And we talked about like earlier this season where like, could this get bad? Yeah. If you get more injuries on defense, if Mac doesn't bounce back from the Dallas game, yeah, this can get worse. And we're seeing that happen right before our eyes because Keon White is in concussion protocol. Jonathan Jones just suffered a knee injury and he's already hurt. Jack Jones may be coming back, sure. Maybe Trey Flowers helps you out. But like, that's on defense, which is actually doing its part by doing the bend but don't break thing, where like they're not going to get off the field very much or like very quickly at times, but they're going to make the plays when they need to, and they're not going to allow touchdowns. Now, you hold up your end of the bargain and score 20 points. And we're at a point now where it's looking like maybe, the Kendrick Bourne and DeMario Douglas experiment works. Yeah. But it just doesn't seem like this team's going to be competent very quickly. So you're just going to have to drag yourself through the mud.
I was waiting for this comment. I was waiting for that comment. Like, literally, that's how much Belichick is involved. Like, the cable bill. Yeah. I agree. Spec the Des. What's going on? Like, I was reading and I started laughing because I was reading the live comments come in. Like, that's how entrenched he is in this place. And so it's not as easy as everyone wants it to be for them to just pull the plug on him.
Yeah, but I guess that just is where I was trying to get to was how bad can it get?
Right.
And how much are you going to put up with? Because again, it could get so much worse. And then it's okay if you do, then there's no real direction that you can go. Because like we're talking about the trade deadline. We don't even know how that's going to work out because I think Bill has to have some understanding of like, I'm probably not going to be running this team for very much longer. Right. So how much weight do you put more into Matt Groh? And like you said, is Matt Groh even going to stay? Are you getting Bill O'Brien's guys? Because Bill O'Brien could leave. Right. And you're hoping the defensive staff stays because the defensive staff has been fantastic. These are consistently good defenses.
Like, how much effort is Bill going to want to put into the deadline if he knows that he's not coming back next year? Is he going to want to set up this place to succeed moving forward? Or is he just going to be so annoyed that he's not going to be back here and say, well, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, it's just, the whole thing it's very interesting. This organization's in a very interesting spot right now.
And it's like, I was thinking, I would hope that he would at least take like a Bruce Arians role and kind of usher the team into the next. But like, do you trust him to be a consultant? Like, obviously, Belichick knows so much. Like, I'm not acting like get him out of the door. He's an idiot. I'm not saying that. But seriously, his perspective is clearly not where it needs to be to build or to field a competitive football team. And it's just how much can you really take what he has to say about your roster construction into consideration? It's a really, really tough situation for someone who's built up so much good faith. And for it to just have, the signs and the breadcrumbs have been there. And then just like the bottom got too high and just completely fell out. And
it's crazy.
Where do you go from
there? It's wild. And I've brought up the date like 3 times today because it is crazy that it is only October 16th. And we're already having these conversations of a 1-5 football team. Like, you're right.
Usually you're hoping they turn it around by September. You're like hoping by Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Like, it's a good way to put it. Like, the bottom has just all of a sudden, like you said, breadcrumbs, and it got hot, and all of a sudden it just fell, and it fell freaking fast. So, I mean, we're just going to have to kind of, watch it play out and see what happens here. But it's interesting.
I don't know if this is more therapy for me or for you or for them. I hope everybody else feels as as a little bit fresher. I needed this. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Mike, for putting up with me.
Of course.
I needed to talk to somebody about this. Thank you all for your great questions, for the interaction. Anything you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
No, all I got to say is thanks for watching. Happy to be back on Press Pass. These are my stomping grounds for some time, and I'm happy to come back anytime you want me, Taylor. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome all the time, my friend. Thank you all so much once again for coming in, for your questions, all that good stuff. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we'll see you next time. Peace.